Many of you know my wife and I have 4 kids. And I want to tell a story about something that's happened 4 times over. With each pregnancy, there's a long period of waiting, sometimes longer for some and sometimes shorter, about 9 months. And on the day of the birth of a child, and you know it's going to happen, we went, as it was, we went to the hospital 4 times, tried to have natural birth, ended up having C-sections for whatever reason. But I remember being in the operating room, and there's a lot of things happening in there. There's the anesthesiologist, who's of course always out of network. I don't know why that is. They're just never a network. And then there's the multiple surgeons, the doctors, and everything's going on, and they're waiting, and this procedure's going on for a C-section. And then after a long wait, like an impossibly long wait, we heard 4 times over the birth of a child, that warning cry, as it were, that scream that demands the attention of the parents and everyone in the room that says, I am alive. Here I am. And it is the most sacred moment ever. It really, really is. And I found myself sitting there speechless, in tears, wondering, if I could do this, which I'm sure many of you have thought of many times in your life. But the sacredness of the moment just took my breath and my words away. I can think of another time when I worked for J.P. Morgan Chase in about 2007, 8, and 9. I was on my way to work that morning and up in New Haven, Connecticut, and I heard on the radio that Lehman Brothers, one of the largest investment banks ever, was going out of business. And I remember driving to work that day thinking, the sky is falling, that the financial institutions are crashing down. Would I have a job? I owned a home at the time in New Haven. Would I be able to pay my rent? And I remember going to work and seeing my boss, who looked white as a ghost. And we all just stood there speechless, wondering, what will happen next? There were no words. There were no words for the days and weeks that followed, wondering every day, would this be it? He's trying to run us in the crowd. Yeah, I'm here. I remember just a week ago being in this room for a funeral of a 44-year-old woman who her husband and her 10-year-old daughter were here. And I was thinking, as I had been thinking weeks before the service, it was a memorial service, she had died weeks before, what can I possibly say? What words would I use to describe this? What does her 10-year-old daughter want to hear? Nothing I gotta say. And that's exactly what I said. The point of all this being that there are many times in life, or a better way to put it is, life does this to us when we just have no words, no response. It could be the loss of a loved one, it could be an illness, it could be a great joy like a birth, or falling in love. It could be attainment, like getting a degree or finishing a project, or it could be a promotion at work. But any time, among any of those times, if we're really paying attention, we have nothing to say. Because what are you going to say? A new child was born. When you go to Hallmark, you get a card, right? What are you going to do? And the beauty of our text today is that in any of those circumstances, anything that life does to us, Jesus gives us the words to say. When you pray, say this, he says. Or pray in this way, as he says in Matthew. And the first thing that we say in the Lord's Prayer, which literally says it all, is Our Father. It's a deep recognition that we have a parent who's looking over us, who made us, who created all this. And had I said those words perhaps on my way to work when I thought my job was going to go out of business, I don't know how much better I'd have felt, but truth be told, it would have relativized it to some extent. Because my Father, your Father, is in heaven. God presides over all this. I didn't make it, I didn't mess it up, and I probably can't fix it. Our Father in heaven. What a great way to say thanks for a gift. Like a child. Like a relationship. Like love. What a way to mourn. I mean, part of the words of the Lord's Prayer is to check our own hubris. And thinking that we know so many things, or we know the answers, or that we even know the right response to situations that come our way. Our Father in heaven, you made all this. Dear God, you fix it. The way that Luther prayed this prayer, and I have this prayer wristband here to help me remember to pray, but Luther would pray one petition all day. He'd walk around and he'd say, Our Father. What does that mean? What does it mean to have a Father that created everything, that watches over me? What does it mean in light of a circumstance or an event that I simply can't understand? To pray to God and trust that God will make it right. So Luther would walk around and say a different petition all day long. Who art in heaven. That is to say, somewhere else and right here and everywhere. That God is always with us. That God will never leave us. And so part of what Jesus is saying to us in this gospel reading today is to say to us, pray. And it doesn't have to be, on a kneeler in a church. It doesn't have to be at your bedside. It doesn't have to be waking and rising. It doesn't have to be the hours in the day. You don't have to wake up in the middle of the night and pray the hours. That's something many do. It's pray always. We have certain postures that come to mind when we think of prayer, right? Like you get down on your knees, you cross yourself, you fold your hands. The Oron's position, which is an ancient position of the church. The earliest depicted position of people praying. That's why pastors do this. But prayer can happen at any time and at all times. It could be on your way to work. It could be out for a job. Praying could be music that you make or music that you listen to. Because we often think praying has something to do with simply the words. But it has more to do with the intent. Some people say, the prayer doesn't change God, it prays those who pray. That was Soren Kierkegaard, famous Lutheran. Others would say prayer makes you in right relationship with God, and that it absolutely does. Jesus gives us the words, but the point being that when we pray, we're not relying on ourselves. Even if you're praying for the ability to get through something, you're saying to God, give me strength. Strength that doesn't come from me, comes from God. That's the right relationship piece. That when we lean on God in prayer, then we're finally getting ourselves right with others and ourselves. Because life is hard. And doing it by yourself is nearly impossible. So our Father calls God into it. Hallowed be God's name. Holy. I've said this before, but Brian, who's away living the life this summer as he does every year for time immemorial, I guess. When he, being a Jew, he doesn't even put the vowel in God. It's G and then a hyphen D, because the name for him is so sacred. And that's a Jewish piety. It's not universal, but many Jews do it. And interestingly, that when we say God, right, we know who we're talking about, right? The God of Jesus, the God who created everything. God is another way to say the many different names of God in the Bible. And so, when you see Lord in the Bible, there's actually a divine name there. It's the YWHW, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, popularly transcribed as Yahweh. And then you say God, that's Adonai. That's also, these are words and ways of keeping God's name holy. So we say God. I've said this a million times, but the Hebrew text of the Bible does not give us the vowels that we say Yahweh. So we put an A and an E in there, but they're not there in the text. It's because God's name is so holy and precious that we really can't pronounce it. So people call it the Tetragrammaton, or in Hebrew, the Yod He Vav He. How holy is God's name for us? Do we say, God damn it? So we say, is Jesus Christ an expletive? Even more than that, right? What happens to us when we hear God's name said? Does it transform where we are? Does that make anywhere God's name invoked a church? A sacred experience? Or is it a throwaway? But that's a piety you can develop in yourselves for the presence of God's name in your life. And I'm not good at it. But I'm working on it. And so, we all learned the Lord's Prayer in confirmation class, probably, right? That's probably one of the last times, or when it comes up in the lectionary. I want to commend you all to pray it as often as you can. Pray it all the time. It's a gift and grace to not have to think about what you have to say sometimes. It's not fancy. There aren't any big words in it. Simple stuff. Let's say it together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory is not found in the Matthew Gospel or the Luke Gospel, but it's found later in a post-biblical document called the Didache, which we don't really know where it's from. It's either late 1st century, early 2nd century. The Didache adds this to the end of the prayer because it's how Jews ended their prayers in the doxology. You'd say, who is God? Well, yours is the kingdom, and yours is the power, and yours is the glory. It's a very Jewish practice. Sometimes when I do funerals, I'll say the doxology again, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. And many Roman Catholics won't say it because they usually end the prayer before then, but they'll say it afterwards, right? Soon after the priest interjects and says some words, and then people say it. So even Roman Catholics say it, they say it a little later. But that's how Jews would end their prayer, because it's a deep recognition of who you're praying to. After saying these petitions to God, you're saying these things are yours. The births in the lives are yours. The losses that we experience are yours. The joys we experience are yours. The tears that we promise to wipe away are yours. And finally, when our lives go back to God, and God says in Jeremiah that God will write our names on the palm of God's hand, that trust in God is God's too. So all this is to say there's no circumstance for which the Lord's Prayer is inappropriate. Say it. Pray it. It will give you peace. Thanks be to God.